She was rejected in front of the entire pack. Under a full moon. Before the elders. Before the warriors. Before the alpha who once promised her power. I reject this bond. 5 words. That's all it took to erase her future. Or so they thought. As what no one knew. Not the council. Not the rival packs. Not even the alpha who humiliated her. She was already pregnant. But not with his child. The night he severed the bond, he didn't realize something older had already claimed her. A sovereign bond. A forbidden bloodline. An heir powerful enough to fracture the council itself. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about balance. About what happens when the woman they tried to control becomes the axis they can't remove. Welcome to a world where mate bonds aren't chosen by politics. And the child of a rejected Luna may decide the future of every alpha alive. Chapter 1. The night he rejected me. The full moon hung high over the clearing, bright enough to turn every face silver. Torches circled the ceremonial ground. Elders stood in dark cloaks. Pack warriors lined the outer ring. The mating ceremony was sacred, the highest public declaration of bond and loyalty. And tonight it was hers. She stood in white, barefoot on cool earth, heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her name was Lyra Vale, daughter of a minor house, but chosen by the most powerful alpha in the Western Territory. Ronan Blackwood. Future ruler. Dominant. Feared. Admired. He stood across from her in black ceremonial attire, broad shoulders rigid, expression unreadable. This was how it worked. The alpha claims. The Luna accepts. The bond seals before the pack. Lyra had waited months for this moment. Ronan had courted her publicly. Touched her hand in front of the council. Marked her with preliminary bonding rites. Tonight was the final seal. The elder raised his staff. Alpha Ronan Blackwood, the elder announced, voice echoing across the clearing. Do you accept this mate before the moon and your pack? Lyra lifted her chin. Ronan stepped forward. For one breath, everything felt right. Then he stepped back. The silence was immediate. I reject this bond. The words landed like a blade to the chest. For a second Lyra thought she had misheard him. But the gasps rippling through the crowd confirmed it. Reject. Publicly. Before the entire pack. Her shoulder burned as the preliminary mark across her skin seared violently. A mating bond, even partially formed, does not break quietly. It tears. He staggered. Pain exploded through her ribs as the thread between them snapped. Wolves howled, not in celebration but shock. Ronan didn't look at her. He looked at the elders. This bond weakens the pack, he said calmly. I will not bind myself for sentiment. Sentiment. Lyra's knees hit the dirt. Her wolf shrieked inside her, confused, wounded, humiliated. Public rejection was more than emotional. It marked weakness. It stained reputation. No alpha willingly touched a rejected Luna after that. She forced herself to look up. Why? She whispered. Ronan finally met her eyes. You are not strong enough for what is coming. The cruelty wasn't in his tone. It was in his certainty. The ceremony ended without closure. Elders whispered urgently. Warriors avoided her gaze. Lyra stood alone in the clearing long after the torches burned low. The moon no longer felt like blessing. It felt like exposure. That night the pain didn't stop. It moved. The tearing ache in her chest faded slowly, but something else pulsed lower in her abdomen. Unfamiliar. She lay in her chamber staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment again and again. I reject this bond. Rejected Lunas were pitted. Or ignored. Never reclaimed. Her wolf curled inward, quiet and shaken. Then the pain sharpened again. She gasped and sat up. This was different. Not the echo of a broken bond. Deeper. Instinctively, her hand pressed to her stomach. Her breath hitched. That morning, the healer confirmed what she barely dared to imagine. You are with child. The words echoed in the small stone room. Lyra stared at the healer. That's impossible. The healer's expression remained steady. It is not. Her heart began racing. The ceremony had not sealed fully, but preliminary bonding rites were enough to allow conception if fate aligned. Ronan's child. Rejected publicly. Carrying the alpha's heir. The political implications alone were explosive. If Ronan acknowledged the child, she would regain status. If he denied it, she would become scandal. Lyra walked out of the healer's quarters numb. The Western Pack territory stretched wide and proud under the morning sun. But she no longer belonged there. Something tugged at her. Not toward the Alpha House. Not toward the ceremonial grounds. The forest line beyond the river. Enemy land. Her pulse quickened. That was impossible. The Eastern Territory belonged to Alpha Cale Thorne, Ronan's longtime rival. The Alpha he had accused of plotting rebellion. The Alpha he had nearly gone to war with last winter. Lyra had only seen Cale once. Across a negotiation table. Dark eyes. Controlled presence. Dangerous silence. She had felt something that day. A flicker. She had dismissed it. Because she was already being prepared for Ronan. The pull in her stomach tightened again. Not painful. Magnetic. Her wolf stirred faintly. Not wounded. Alert. Lyra stepped outside the western boundary markers without fully deciding to. The air shifted immediately. Different scent. Different wind. Her heart pounded as she crossed the river line separating the two territories. Halfway across the shallow stones, dizziness hit her. The world tilted. She stumbled forward and fell to her knees on the eastern bank. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground completely. Easy. The voice was low. Controlled. She looked up. Cale Thorne stood over her. Not surprised. Certain. His hand hovered over her stomach instinctively. The moment his palm brushed the fabric. His eyes shifted to gold. Not anger. Recognition. The air around them tightened like a pulled wire. Cale inhaled slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried quiet authority. She's carrying my air. Lyra's world fractured all over again. Not Ronan's. Not the Western Alphas. His. And somewhere deep inside her, beneath the fear and humiliation, her wolf didn't deny it. Chapter 2. The bond that was never broken. Lyra stared at Cale as if the earth itself had tilted. That's impossible, she said, breath uneven. I was bound to Ronan. Cale didn't release her. His hand remained steady at her waist, the other hovering near her stomach as though drawn by instinct rather than intention. You were promised to Ronan, he corrected calmly. That isn't the same thing. His voice held no arrogance. No triumph. Only certainty. The eastern forest behind him stood quiet, but not unwelcoming. Wolves moved in the shadows, watching without approaching. They weren't tense. They were waiting. Lyra pulled back slightly. You're mistaken. Cale's eyes, still faintly gold, searched her face. Look at me, he said. She did. And the moment their gazes locked, something inside her chest shifted. Not sharp like the tearing she felt when Ronan rejected her. This was deeper. Rooted. A thread she hadn't known existed. It didn't feel new. Felt remembered. Cale inhaled slowly. You felt it the day of the negotiation. Her stomach tightened. Months ago she had stood behind Ronan during a territorial dispute meeting. Cale had entered late, rain on his coat, eyes unreadable. For 3 seconds they had looked at each other. And in those 3 seconds, her pulse had misfired. She had blamed nerves. You're imagining things, she whispered. Cale shook his head once. There are 2 types of mate bonds, he said evenly. Ritual bonds declared before elders. And sovereign bonds, chosen by blood. She froze. Sovereign bonds were myth. Rare enough to be dismissed as legend. They don't require ceremony, Cale continued. They don't require touch. They don't ask for permission. Lyra stepped back from him fully now. No. Yes. Her wolf stirred again, not in fear. Recognition. Cale lowered his voice. When Ronan began formal bonding rites with you, the connection never fully sealed. Her mind raced. The preliminary mark on her shoulder had always felt muted, present but thin. She had assumed that was normal before the ceremony. You're saying it never belonged to him, she said slowly. I'm saying, Cale replied, it was already claimed. The word echoed through her. Claimed. By blood, not by politics. She shook her head. If that were true, the council would have known. Cale's expression darkened slightly. The council suppresses sovereign bonds. Lyra's pulse skipped. Why? Because sovereign bonds override alliances. The implications hit hard. If sovereign bonds formed freely, Pack leaders couldn't arrange political matings. They couldn't secure power through calculated unions. Ronan's rejection suddenly felt less personal, more strategic. "You knew," she said quietly. Kale didn't look away. "I suspected. And you said nothing?" "I had no proof. And now?" His hand returned gently to her stomach. Now she didn't pull away. The connection surged instantly, not dramatic but undeniable. "How I do." The forest wind shifted. Footsteps approached from behind. 3 Eastern warriors stopped at a respectful distance. "Alpha," one said quietly. "Western scouts are near the river." Of course they were. Ronan would not ignore her disappearance. Lyra's throat tightened. "If he believes I'm here willingly." "He will," Kale said. "And if he believes this child is yours." "He will." The political tension between their packs had been balanced on a blade for years. A sovereign heir would shatter it. "You should send me back," Lyra said suddenly. Kale's gaze sharpened. "No. You don't understand. If I stay here, he'll see it as theft." "You are not an object," Kale replied evenly. His control unsettled her more than anger would have. "This isn't about pride," she insisted. "It's about war." Kale stepped closer, not dominating, not forcing. War was already coming. She searched his face. No deception. No desperation. Only truth. The pull between them tightened again, but this time she recognized it fully. It wasn't obsession. It wasn't infatuation. It was alignment. Her wolf rose slowly inside her. Not broken. Not rejected. Whole. "You rejected Ronan before he rejected you," Kale said quietly. Her breath caught. "That's not true. Your blood did." The thought unsettled her. Had her instincts resisted the Western bond all along? Had her hesitation been more than fear? She remembered every moment she stood beside Ronan. Admiration. Yes. Attraction. Perhaps. But never that grounding certainty she felt now. The certainty that didn't require ceremony. Didn't require witnesses. Only recognition. The wind shifted again. A distant howl echoed from across the river. "Western. Ronan." Lyra stiffened. "He's here." Kale's posture changed subtly, protective but composed. "You don't have to choose today," he said. She looked at him sharply. "I'm not choosing between men." "No," he agreed. "You're choosing between truth and fear." The howl sounded again, closer. Her heart pounded. She placed her hand over her stomach instinctively. The child responded with a faint pulse of warmth. Not fragile. Strong. Kale was right. This wasn't Ronan's heir. It was something older. Something the council would never tolerate freely. Footsteps approached from the western side of the trees. Armor. 40. Controlled fury. Kale didn't move in front of her. He stood beside her. Equal. Ronan stepped through the tree line. His eyes locked onto Lyra immediately, then dropped to her stomach, then shifted to Kale. Silence fell heavy between the 3 of them. "You crossed into enemy territory," Ronan said evenly. Lyra held his gaze. "I wasn't taken." His jaw flexed. "And the child?" Kale answered before she could. "The child is sovereign." The word struck like thunder. Ronan's expression changed, not confusion. Recognition. He knew what that meant. And that knowledge terrified him more than betrayal ever could. Chapter 3. The claim no one could control. The forest held its breath. Ronan Blackwood stood at the river's edge, flanked by 2 enforcers who wisely remained several steps behind him. He didn't need numbers. He needed clarity. "Sovereign," Ronan repeated slowly. The word carried weight older than territory lines. Kale didn't blink. "You felt it the night of the ceremony." Ronan's gaze flicked to Lyra. For a brief second, something unguarded passed through his expression. Then it was gone. "You should have told me," Ronan said to her. Lyra straightened. "You rejected me." "I rejected a weak alliance," he corrected sharply. "Not." He stopped. Because he couldn't finish that sentence without admitting doubt. Without admitting he had felt something wrong in the bond long before the ceremony. "You knew," Lyra said quietly. Ronan didn't deny it. "When the preliminary rites began," he said, voice controlled, "the mark didn't settle. It resisted." Her shoulder tingled at the memory. You assumed it was my fault, she replied. I assumed your bloodline was unstable. Kale's jaw tightened slightly. Her bloodline is the most stable one standing here. The air crackled. Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. Explain it, Ronan demanded. Now. Kale didn't hesitate. Sovereign bonds form when two bloodlines are genetically and spiritually aligned beyond political structure. They cannot be overridden by ceremony. Ronan's eyes darkened. You're saying she was never mine to bind? Yes. The answer was calm, unapologetic. Ronan's enforcers shifted uneasily. Lyra stepped forward slightly, refusing to stand behind either alpha. If that's true, she said, why didn't the council intervene? Kale's expression hardened. Because sovereign bonds disrupt arranged power. Ronan exhaled sharply. You're accusing the council of suppression. I'm stating fact. Lyra's mind raced. The sovereign bonds were suppressed, that meant. How many? She asked quietly. Kale looked at her. In the last 50 years? Officially none. Unofficially. Ronan pressed. Enough to frighten the council. The implications rolled through the trees like distant thunder. Sovereign heirs couldn't be politically controlled. Couldn't be positioned like chess pieces. They chose. Lyra felt the warmth in her abdomen again. Stronger this time. Ronan noticed. His gaze dropped instinctively. How far along? He asked. Early, she answered. Silence stretched. Then Ronan did something unexpected. He stepped closer. Not toward Kale. Toward her. Do you feel it? He asked quietly. She held his gaze. Yes. What does it feel like? She searched for words. Like something that was waiting. Kale's wolf stirred visibly beneath his skin. Ronan noticed. You're certain it's his? Ronan asked. The question wasn't accusation. It was strategic assessment. Lyra didn't hesitate. Yes. The certainty surprised even her. Ronan's expression shifted again, this time not anger. Calculation. If the council confirms this, he said slowly, they will not allow the pregnancy to continue. The words landed hard. Kale's posture changed instantly. They won't touch her. They won't touch her directly, Ronan replied. They'll declare her unstable. Exile her. Strip pack protection. Lyra felt cold clarity settle in. They'll make me vulnerable. Yes. And then? Kale asked. Ronan met his gaze. They'll send hunters. The wind shifted sharply through the trees. Sovereign heirs threatened hierarchy. Hierarchy defended itself. Lyra's breath steadied. I won't hide, she said. Both alphas looked at her. This isn't about pride, she continued. If they suppress sovereign bonds, then this isn't the first time. Kale's expression softened slightly. No. Then running only confirms their control. Ronan studied her carefully. You would challenge the council openly? I would challenge their narrative. Silence. For a long moment none of them moved. Then Ronan did something neither of them expected. He dismissed his enforcers with a single hand signal. They retreated instantly. You're alone? Kale asked. Ronan nodded once. If this becomes public without structure, Ronan said evenly, the packs fracture. They already are, Kale replied. Ronan ignored him. He focused on Lyra. You were right to leave. The admission hung heavy. She didn't smile. I didn't leave for him, she said quietly. Ronan's jaw flexed. I know. That hurt more than if he had denied it. Because it meant he understood. The bond between them had always been constructed. Not rooted. The forest went still again. A distant howl echoed, not western. Not eastern. Neutral territory. Council patrol. They're already moving, Kale muttered. Ronan stepped back. If they summon conclave, they'll force a blood test. Lyra's stomach tightened. And if it confirms sovereign blood? Then they'll divide, Kale said. Or they'll eliminate the variable, Ronan added. Lyra met both their eyes. I am not a variable. The warmth inside her flared briefly. Not explosive. Steady. Kale felt it instantly. Ronan did too. The ground beneath them seemed to hum faintly. This isn't just a sovereign bond, Kale said quietly. Ronan's gaze sharpened. What are you implying? Kale didn't look away from Lyra. I think the child is first line. Silence slammed down. First line. The original Alpha bloodline. Not aligned to any territory. Not sworn to council law. Ronan's expression changed completely. That wasn't fear. It was realization. If that's true, Ronan said slowly, this isn't about pack rivalry anymore. Lyra's pulse slowed instead of racing. Clarity replaced shock. What is it about? She asked. Ronan answered without hesitation. It's about control of the future. And somewhere beyond the river a horn sounded. The council had already called conclave. Chapter 4. The conclave summons. The horn echoed 3 times. Unmistakable. Every wolf in both territories would hear it. Lyra stood between 2 rival alphas as the sound rolled across the forest and into the river valley. They're moving faster than expected, Kale said. They don't want time for alliances, Ronan replied evenly. Lyra exhaled slowly. When? Tomorrow night, Ronan said. They'll demand immediate assembly. Of course they would. No time for preparation. No time for strategy. No time for whispers to turn into support. Contain the threat before it grows. Lyra looked from one alpha to the other. If I don't attend? They'll declare you rogue, Ronan said. And strip protection, Kale added. Either choice was a trap. Lyra straightened. Then I attend. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. You'll stand alone in a circle of elders who fear you. I won't be alone. The statement wasn't emotional. It was factual. Both alphas went still. She wasn't asking permission. She was informing them. The conclave grounds lay in neutral territory, ancient stone ruins beneath open sky. No pack claimed it. No alpha ruled it. The council preferred it that way. Neutral ground made control look impartial. By dusk the following evening, torches ringed the stone circle. Representatives from 5 territories gathered in silence. The air carried tension like static before lightning. Lyra stepped forward first. Not Kale. Not Ronan. Her presence drew immediate attention. Whispers followed her path to the center stone. She crossed territory willingly. They say the child isn't Blackwood's. Sovereign blood. Dangerous words. Malric, eldest of the council, stood at the northern stone. His hair silvered with age but his eyes sharp and calculating. Lyra Vale, he began, voice carrying easily. You stand accused of destabilizing territorial bonds. I was rejected, she replied calmly. A ripple of murmurs. Malric's gaze shifted briefly toward Ronan. Alpha Blackwood confirms the rejection. Ronan's expression was neutral. Yes. And yet, Malric continued, you claim pregnancy. I do. By which alpha? Silence pressed in from every direction. Lyra didn't look at either man. By sovereign bond. The circle tightened. Several alphas shifted uneasily. Malric's eyes hardened. Sovereign bonds are unverified folklore. They are inconvenient, Kale said from the outer ring. Malric's gaze snapped toward him. You were not granted the floor. I don't require it. Tension spiked. Malric lifted a hand. Silence. The conclave quieted. Malric turned back to Lyra. You are aware that false claims of sovereign bond are punishable? I am aware. Then you will submit to blood confirmation. Lyra nodded once. I will. A collective intake of breath. He didn't hesitate. Didn't argue. Didn't deflect. Malric studied her carefully. He had expected fear. Or defiance. He received composure. 2 council healers stepped forward with ceremonial blades and silver basins. Lyra didn't flinch as they cut her palm lightly. Her blood dripped into the basin. Not red. Silver threaded faintly through it. The circle went silent. Malric's eyes sharpened. Bring the Eastern Alpha. Kale stepped forward without delay. He offered his palm. His blood fell into the same basin. Gold threaded through crimson. When the 2 streams touched, they reacted. Not violently, but undeniably. Silver and gold intertwined like braided light. The basin hummed faintly. Several wolves stepped back instinctively. Malric's jaw tightened. Alpha Blackwood, he said. Ronan approached last. He cut his palm without hesitation. His blood entered the basin. Nothing happened. It flowed normally. Unreactive. The silence that followed was absolute. The evidence was clear. Malric exhaled slowly. Sovereign bond confirmed. The words landed like a fracture line splitting through the conclave. Some alphas lowered their gazes. Others looked directly at Lyra now with something new. Not pity. Recognition. Malric wasn't finished. Sovereign bond does not grant immunity from council law, he continued. A first-line heir disrupts established hierarchy. There was. First line. He had said it publicly. You knew, Lyra said quietly. Malric didn't deny it. We suspected your bloodline held dormant traits. And you arranged my political mating to suppress it, she replied. Ronan's expression shifted slightly. He hadn't known that. Malric's voice remained controlled. Stability requires foresight. Stability requires control, Kale countered. Malric ignored him. Lyra Vale, by council authority, you are ordered to remain within neutral territory under supervision until birth. A murmur of approval came from the northern territories. Containment disguised as protection. And the father? Lyra asked. Alpha Thorn will relinquish direct contact. The air changed instantly. Kale's wolf surged beneath his skin. No. Malric's gaze hardened. You will comply. I will not. The challenge was quiet, but absolute. Several warriors shifted toward Kale defensively. Ronan watched carefully. He understood what the council was attempting. Separate the sovereign bond. Weaken it. Malric turned back to Lyra. If you refuse, you will be declared rogue. Lyra looked around the circle. 5 territories. 5 alphas. All weighing power against fear. She stepped forward 1 pace. I did not choose this bond for politics, she said. And I will not surrender my child to it. Her voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. The silver thread in the basin began glowing faintly again. The ground hummed beneath the stones. Wolves shifted uneasily. Malric felt it too. This is precisely why sovereign heirs are dangerous, he said. No, Lyra replied calmly. This is why you fear them. Silence. Long. Heavy. Then unexpectedly, Ronan stepped forward. If you declare her rogue, he said evenly, the Western Territory withdraws from council enforcement. Gasps broke the circle. Malric's eyes narrowed. You would fracture order for sentiment? I would fracture it for balance. Kale didn't look at Ronan. But he didn't object. The divide was no longer east versus west. It was council versus future. Malric studied the circle. Calculated. He wasn't prepared for open rebellion tonight. Not without majority. Finally he spoke. The conclave is adjourned until further vote. Not victory. But not surrender. Lyra stepped back from the stone center. The battle had begun. Not of clause. Of structure. And as the packs dispersed into the night, one truth settled heavier than any decree. The council would not concede quietly. Chapter 5. The Hunter Directive. The conclave did not end the threat. It clarified it. By dawn, word had spread across every territory. Sovereign bond confirmed. First-line heir possible. Council divided. And division made wolves dangerous. Lyra remained in neutral territory by choice, not decree. Kale refused to return east. Ronan delayed Western patrol withdrawal. A fragile triangle formed, not alliance but mutual deterrence. It lasted less than 12 hours. Rowan, Kale's beta, arrived at dusk with a sealed parchment bearing the council crest. They've issued Directive 7, he said. Ronan's jaw tightened. Hunter class. Lyra looked between them. Explain. Kale took the parchment and broke the seal. His expression hardened as he read. Directive 7 authorizes elite enforcement units to neutralize existential threats to pack stability, he said. Neutralize. Lyra felt the word settle cold in her chest. They can't declare me rogue after adjournment, she said. They didn't, Ronan replied evenly. They declared the pregnancy a destabilizing anomaly. Political language. Clinical. Detached. They'll target the variable, Kale said quietly. Why child? Yes. The forest seemed quieter than usual, as if listening. Lyra straightened slowly. They won't attack publicly, she said. They'll make it look like an accident. Ronan nodded once. Silver contamination. Rogue ambush. Healer error. Calculated elimination. Kale folded the directive carefully. They underestimate something. Lyra looked at him. What? You. The first attempt came at twilight. Subtle. Efficient. A healer from the Northern Territory requested access to conduct independent evaluation for safety assurance. Credentials were legitimate. Authority verified. Lyra agreed to the meeting in open ground. She saw it before anyone else did. The healer's pulse. Too controlled. Too flat. Not fear. Intent. When he stepped closer with the ceremonial vial, her wolf reacted instantly. Silver flared beneath her skin, not outward. Inward. The vial in his hand shattered. Wolfsbane powder dispersed into the air. Kale moved first, knocking the man to the ground. Ronan restrained him before claws could rise. The healer didn't resist. He smiled. You confirm instability, he said calmly. Ronan struck him across the jaw. The smile remained. They'll send more. Lyra didn't speak. He felt something different. Not fear. Bigger. Measured. Focused. Kale searched her face. You sensed him. Yes. How? She exhaled slowly. I feel disruption before it happens. The child pulsed faint warmth in response. Ronan noticed. That's not normal sovereign response. No, Kale agreed. It's first-line amplification. Silence followed. The implications deepened. First-line heirs didn't just inherit power. They projected it. Council control depended on predictability. Lyra was no longer predictable. The second attempt was not subtle. It came after midnight. 3 Hunter-class enforcers breached neutral ground perimeter without declaration. They wore silver thread armor, resistant to alpha dominance. They moved with precision. Kale and Ronan engaged immediately. Claws met steel. The forest erupted into motion. Lyra stepped back instinctively and froze. The hunters weren't targeting the alphas. They were triangulating her. She felt the trap before it closed. The air shifted sharply behind her. A fourth hunter. Hidden. Silver chain launched forward. It wrapped around her wrist before she could move. The metal burned. Her wolf snarled inside her. Pain shot up her arm. Not mortal. Suppressive. The hunter tightened his grip. Directive compliance, he said calmly. Kale roared. Ronan broke free from one attacker and lunged toward her. But Lyra didn't wait. The warmth in her abdomen surged. Not explosive. Precise. The silver chain disintegrated. Not shattered. Dissolved. The hunter staggered backward, eyes wide. The ground beneath them hummed faintly. Every wolf in the clearing froze for a fraction of a second. Not forced. Paused. As if awaiting instruction. Lyra lifted her gaze. Her eyes weren't glowing wildly. They were steady. Leave, she said. The command carried without volume. The hunters hesitated. Not from fear. From recognition. Hierarchy shifted invisibly. Ronan felt it. Kale did too. The hunters retreated. Not routed, but unsettled. When silence returned, no one moved immediately. Lyra lowered her arms slowly. The burn mark faded. Kale approached carefully. You're not just amplifying, he said quietly. You're overriding. Ronan exhaled slowly. That's alpha-level dominance without formal claim. Lyra absorbed the words. I didn't push them, she said. I told them to leave. That's the point, Kale replied. First-line blood did not crush. It recalibrated. Ronan looked toward the darkened forest edge. They won't stop. No, Lyra agreed. But they won't escalate blindly now. Kale studied her carefully. You're not afraid. She met his gaze. I was rejected publicly. She glanced toward Ronan. I survived humiliation. Then back to Kale. I survived suppression. Her hand rested lightly on her stomach. I will survive hunters. The forest wind shifted again. Not hostile. Aligned. Ronan spoke quietly. They wanted to test you. Kale nodded. And now they know. Lyra's voice remained steady. They know what? Kale's answer was simple. That you are not the threat. Ronan finished the thought. You are the correction. And somewhere beyond neutral ground, in chambers lined with old stone and older fear, the council realized something dangerous. The hunter directive had failed. Chapter 6. The Fracturing Council. The Hunter Directive failed quietly. No official record would mention it. No council proclamation would admit defeat. But wolves talk. Enforcers who returned unsettled spoke in lower tones than usual. Silver thread armor left faint scorch marks no one could explain. Authority had been challenged, and not through violence. Through command. By morning, 3 territories requested emergency audience with the council. By afternoon, 2 withdrew enforcement support. The fracture had begun. Lyra remained in neutral territory by agreement, not imprisonment. Kale fortified the perimeter without turning it into a fortress. Ronan stationed Western scouts at visible distance. It was not alliance. It was balance. Inside the old stone hall at the center of neutral ground, Kale and Ronan stood opposite each other while Lyra reviewed updated patrol maps. "They'll pivot strategy," Ronan said. "Toward what?" Kale asked. "Delegitimization." Lyra didn't look up. "Character attack." "Yes," Ronan replied evenly. "They'll question your stability. Suggest emotional volatility. Claim first-line blood induces instability." Kale's jaw tightened slightly. "They already tried suppression. It failed." "They'll move to narrative control," Ronan said. "It's cleaner." Lyra set the map down. "Then we speak first." Both alphas looked at her. "Publicly?" Kale asked. "Yes." Ronan considered it. "If you address all territories directly, you bypass council framing. You also escalate visibility," Kale added. "I'm already visible," Lyra replied calmly. Silence. He was right. The longer she remained quiet, the more space the council had to define her. "I want open assembly," she continued. "Not conclave. Not elders. Pack representatives." Ronan exhaled slowly. "That's unprecedented." "So is this." The council convened privately the same night. Malric stood at the head of the chamber, flanked by 6 elder representatives. "The Hunter Directive has compromised perception," one elder said sharply. "It confirmed volatility," another countered. "It confirmed capability," Malric corrected quietly. The chamber stilled. "She dissolved silver suppression without aggression," Malric continued. "That is not instability. That is precision. Then she is more dangerous than anticipated." "Yes." Silence. "What is your proposal?" one elder asked. Malric folded his hands. "We force declaration." "Of what?" "Territorial claim." Understanding dawned slowly across the chamber. "If she claims territory," Malric continued, "she becomes subject to council ratification. And if she refuses? She becomes rogue by definition. Containment through structure. Elegant. Ruthless." The invitation arrived at dusk. Stamped. Formal. Public. Lyra read it without visible reaction. "They're demanding I declare territorial alignment," she said. Kale's expression hardened. "They want you to choose east or west." Ronan nodded once. "If you align with either, the sovereign bond becomes subordinate to territorial hierarchy." "And if I refuse?" Lyra asked. "They declare you rogue," Ronan replied. The trap was clean. Choose and be contained. Refuse and be hunted. Lyra looked out beyond the neutral hall toward the distant forest line. "They're afraid of something," she said quietly. Kale studied her. "Not just the bond," she continued. "Not just the air." "Then what?" Ronan asked. She placed her hand lightly over her stomach. "They're afraid of precedent." Silence followed. If sovereign bonds could stand independent of territory, the council's authority weakened permanently. "Not this year. Forever." "They don't fear my child," she said. "They fear replication." Kale's expression shifted subtly. Ronan nodded slowly. "Yes." That night, Lyra walked beyond the torchlight perimeter alone. Not far. Just enough for quiet. The moon hung half full, pale and observant. She felt the steady warmth within her again. Stronger than before. Not volatile. Anchored. "You don't want territory," she murmured softly. The warmth pulsed faintly in response. He understood. First-line blood did not attach to borders. It attached to equilibrium. Footsteps approached quietly behind her. "You shouldn't walk alone," he said. "I wasn't alone." He stopped beside her. You're not going to choose east or west. No. They'll escalate. Yes. Kale studied her profile in moonlight. You're calm. She nodded slightly. I was humiliated publicly. You survived. Yes. I was hunted. You adapted. Yes. He hesitated briefly. What are you planning? Lyra turned to him fully. I'm going to reject their framework. Kale's gaze sharpened. How? I will not declare territory. That makes you rogue. Only if I accept their definition. Silence. You intend to create a third axis, he said slowly. Yes. Not east. Not west. Not council. Independent. Sovereign. Kale exhaled quietly. That will fracture the council permanently. Lyra held his gaze. They were already fractured. He didn't argue, because he knew it was true. At dawn, a messenger from the Southern Territory arrived unexpectedly. He carried no council seal. Only a simple crest. Alpha Darius requests audience, he said. Ronan stiffened slightly. Southern Territory rarely involves itself. Kale's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. They do when equilibrium shifts. Lyra stepped forward. Let him come. The messenger bowed slightly. He brings more than words. What does he bring? Lyra asked. The messenger met her eyes directly. Support. The fracture had widened. The council had miscalculated. By trying to contain the sovereign bond, they had forced territories to choose. Not between alphas. Between control and evolution. And for the first time since the mating ceremony, Lyra felt something unexpected. Not resistance. Chapter 7. The Third Axis. Alpha Darius of the Southern Territory did not arrive with an army. He arrived with witnesses. 5 representatives from neutral-aligned packs walked behind him into the stone hall. Not enforcers, not elders. Observers. That alone made the council uneasy. Darius was older than Kale, younger than Ronan. Broad-shouldered, steady-eyed, known for avoiding unnecessary conflict. The Southern Territory prospered because it did not overreach. He studied Lyra without hostility. You survived Directive 7, he said plainly. Yes. You dissolved suppression chains. Yes. You declined territorial alignment. Yes. A faint smile touched his mouth. Good. Ronan folded his arms. You support fracture? I support equilibrium, Darius replied. Kale watched quietly. Lyra stepped forward. You didn't come for spectacle. No. Then say what you came to say. Darius nodded once. The council is preparing to vote emergency ratification. Ronan's expression hardened. To force territory declaration. Yes. Kale's voice lowered. When? 2 nights. Fast. Calculated. Lyra absorbed the timeline without visible reaction. And you oppose it? I oppose panic legislation, Darius replied calmly. Especially when driven by fear. He stepped closer into the hall's center. Your presence has revealed structural weakness. The council cannot ignore that. They won't adapt, Ronan said. No, Darius agreed. They will consolidate. Lyra understood. Emergency ratification allows them to redefine sovereign bonds as territorial anomalies, she said. Yes. And place first-line blood under council guardianship. Darius inclined his head. Ronan exhaled sharply. They'll attempt custody. Legally, Darius confirmed. Silence filled the hall. Kale's wolf stirred visibly beneath his composure. They will not take her child, he said evenly. They won't attempt direct seizure first, Darius replied. They'll attempt jurisdiction. Lyra stepped closer to the center stone. They want me to claim territory so they can subordinate the bond. Yes. And if I refuse? They will declare sovereign bonds destabilizing and outlaw them. The air shifted again. Not from fear. From realization. This was no longer about one pregnancy. This was about precedent. Lyra felt clarity settle inside her like cooling steel. They're moving to eliminate sovereign classification entirely. Yes. Ronan's jaw tightened. That rewrites pack law. Correct. Kale looked at Lyra. You said you would reject their framework. Yes. How is when? That night Lyra requested open assembly. Not conclave. Not elder chamber. All territory representatives. Darius agreed to host within southern boundary, neutral enough to avoid accusation of eastern manipulation or western influence. The gathering was smaller than conclave but more dangerous. Because this time the council could not control the speaking order. Lyra stood on elevated stone beneath torchlight. No ceremonial white. No submissive posture. She wore dark cloth, unmarked. Ronan stood to her left. Kale to her right. Darius slightly behind. Visible. Balanced. Malric did not attend personally. He sent 2 senior elders instead. Observers again. Always observing. Lyra didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The council intends to redefine sovereign bonds, she began. Murmurs rippled outward. They intend to force territorial alignment for all future bond recognition. Several pack leaders exchanged glances. That centralizes authority permanently, Darius added. It also removes bloodline autonomy, Ronan said evenly. Lyra continued. If sovereign bonds are outlawed, political mating becomes the only recognized path to power. The implication was clear. Council dominance over succession. Over alliances. Over heirs. Kale stepped forward slightly. They fear unpredictability. They fear loss of leverage, Ronan corrected. Lyra lifted her chin. I refuse territorial claim. A few sharp breaths from the gathered representatives. You cannot exist without alignment, one northern delegate called out. I already do, Lyra replied calmly. The silver thread beneath her skin pulsed faintly. Not aggressive. Steady. I will not claim East, she continued. I will not claim West. I will not submit sovereign bond to council ratification. The northern delegate scoffed. That makes you rogue. Lyra's gaze sharpened. No. The single word carried. It makes me independent. Silence deepened. Darius stepped forward. Southern territory recognizes independent sovereign classification. The statement fractured the air. Ronan followed without hesitation. Western territory recognizes independent sovereign classification. All eyes turned to Kale. He didn't pause. Eastern territory recognizes independent sovereign classification. 3 major territories. Unified. Not by alliance. By principle. The northern delegate's expression darkened. You fracture the council. No, Lyra replied. We fracture control. One of Malric's elder representatives finally spoke. You are rewriting centuries of structure. Yes. The honesty unsettled more than defiance would have. The elder studied her carefully. And if this spreads? Lyra didn't hesitate. It will. A heavy silence followed. The southern torches flickered in shifting wind. This was no longer rebellion. It was restructuring. Kale leaned slightly toward her. They'll escalate beyond law now. Yes, she answered quietly. Ronan's voice remained calm. Then we meet escalation with visibility. Lyra turned to the assembled leaders. This child is not weapon. Not leverage. Not succession tool. Her hand rested lightly over her abdomen. This child is proof that blood chooses balance over politics. The silver warmth pulsed again. Wolves shifted subtly. Not in fear. In alignment. The elder representative's eyes narrowed. You gamble on unity. Lyra met his gaze without blinking. No. She allowed the faintest edge into her tone. I am creating it. By the time the assembly dispersed, the fracture was irreversible. 3 territories had formally recognized independent sovereign classification. 2 remained silent. 1 loyal to the council entirely. Malric would not accept this quietly. He would not debate. He would act. Lyra felt it as the night deepened. Not fear. Pressure. The council had lost narrative control. Now they would move toward something more direct. Chapter 8. The attempted seizure. The council did not respond publicly. That was the first warning. No counter-declaration. No formal objection. No political maneuver. Silence. Lyra stood on the southern boundary ridge at dawn, watching mist move over the valley. She could feel it before anyone said it aloud. They were done arguing. They'll bypass law, Kale said quietly behind her. Yes. Ronan approached from the opposite side, expression controlled but tight. Council enforcers have mobilized from the Northern Territory, he said. Not hunters. Lyra turned. Then what? Custody division. The words settled heavily. Not assassination. Acquisition. They'll attempt seizure under emergency stabilization clause, Darius added, stepping into view. Legal language wrapped around force. They need you compliant, Kale said. Alive. Cooperative. Lyra's jaw tightened. I won't be. Ronan shook his head slightly. They won't ask. The seizure force arrived at midday. 6 armored enforcers. 2 senior council adjudicators. No elders. Malric remained unseen, which meant he was watching from elsewhere. The adjudicator stepped forward first. Lyra Vale, he announced formally. Under emergency stabilization clause, you are placed under council protection pending Heir review. Lyra didn't move. I decline. The adjudicator didn't blink. You misunderstand. This is not request. Silver thread nets were deployed instantly. Kale moved. Ronan moved. Darius guards shifted to intercept. But the nets weren't aimed at the alphas. They were aimed at Lyra's feet. Ground lock. Containment circle. The moment the silver mesh touched the earth around her, it hummed. Suppressive field. Her wolf recoiled slightly at the contact. The adjudicator continued calmly. You will be relocated to secure territory until birth. Kale's voice lowered dangerously. You cross southern boundary without territorial consent. Emergency stabilization supersedes territorial law. Ronan's clause extended slightly. Only by majority vote. The adjudicator's gaze flicked toward him. Majority secured. Silence fell. 2 territories. Enough to trigger enforcement. Lyra felt the suppressive field tighten. Not painful. Dampening. They had adapted. They weren't attacking her body. They were targeting amplification. Clever. Kale tested the edge of the net. Silver energy flared briefly but did not dissolve it. Ronan assessed the perimeter. It's layered, he said quietly. Lyra inhaled slowly. The warmth inside her remained steady. Not suppressed. Contained. They think I must overpower it, she murmured. Kale looked at her. Don't. She didn't respond. The adjudicator stepped closer. You will come willingly. No. The silver field tightened slightly. Not crushing. Confining. The enforcers moved into formation. Kale and Ronan braced instinctively. But Lyra lifted a hand. Wait. Both alphas froze. Not from command. From trust. She closed her eyes briefly. The suppressive field wasn't resisting her. It was redirecting energy outward. Blocking projection. Not internal alignment. He understood. They had prepared for dominance. Not recalibration. Her eyes opened. Clear. Steady. She didn't push. She adjusted. Instead of projecting outward, she drew inward. The silver warmth condensed, not expanded. The field vibrated faintly. Not because it was breaking. Because it was misaligned. The adjudicator frowned slightly. Increased tension. The enforcers tightened formation. The field intensified. Lyra stepped forward. The net did not stop her. It hesitated. Silver mesh flickered where it touched her skin. Not dissolving. Reshaping. Kale's eyes sharpened. She's not overpowering it. No, Ronan said quietly. She's rewriting its response. The field destabilized. Not violently. Quietly. Silver threads loosened like fraying fabric. The adjudicator stepped back instinctively. That's impossible. Lyra spoke calmly. You built suppression on dominance theory. She took another step. The net parted around her. First line does not dominate. The final thread unraveled. It balances. The suppressive field collapsed. Not shattered. Unmade. The enforcers froze. Not by force. By uncertainty. Lyra stood free. Not glowing wildly. Not radiating. Composed. You cannot contain what does not compete, she said quietly. The adjudicator's expression shifted. You have proven instability. No, Darius said evenly. She has proven autonomy. Ronan stepped forward now. If you attempt custody again, Western Territory withdraws enforcement permanently. Kale's voice was lower. And Eastern Territory treats further incursion as aggression. The enforcers hesitated. They had authority, but not majority support. The adjudicator assessed the balance quickly. Too risky. Not enough backing. Council review will escalate, he said finally. Then escalate, Lyra replied. The enforcers withdrew. Not defeated, but recalculating. Silence lingered after they vanished into the trees. Kale turned to her. That was different. Yes. You didn't surge. No. Ronan studied her carefully. You adapted suppression theory midfield. Yes. Darius exhaled slowly. That wasn't alpha dominance. Lyra met his gaze. No. What was it? She considered the question. Then answered simply. Correction. The word settled deeply. Kale felt it first. Then Ronan. Then Darius. The council's structure relied on control hierarchies. First line didn't overthrow hierarchies. It rebalanced them. That made it more dangerous. And more difficult to eliminate. Ronan looked toward the northern horizon. They'll stop trying to take you. Kale nodded slowly. They'll try to remove structure entirely. Lyra understood. If they can't control the bond. They'll attempt to dissolve the council, Darius finished. Reset the system. Rewrite law. Erase precedent. The war had shifted again. No longer custody. No longer suppression. Now it was structural survival. Lyra felt the warmth inside her steady and calm. The child wasn't volatile. It was stabilizing. The council had made their final mistake. They had tested containment. And failed. Now they would face something harder to fight. Change. Chapter 9. The collapse vote. The council called for an emergency vote at dawn. Not to ratify custody. Not to enforce territorial claim. To dissolve the current charter. It was a drastic move. If passed, it would suspend sovereign recognition entirely, nullify independent classification, and centralize succession oversight under a temporary governing body. In simpler terms, reset the system before it could evolve. Lyra read the notice in silence. They're willing to burn their own structure, Kale said quietly. Ronan nodded once. Better to destroy the board than lose control of it. Darius exhaled slowly. If they dissolve the charter, territorial recognition collapses with it. Which means chaos, Kale said. Which means justification for martial enforcement, Ronan finished. The council was not reacting emotionally. They were moving strategically. Lyra folded the notice carefully. When is the vote? Tonight, Darius replied. Of course it was. No time to rally minor territories. No time to build consensus. Force decision before momentum spreads. Lyra looked at each alpha in turn. Will they reach majority? Ronan's expression was measured. 2 northern territories will vote yes. Central territory? Kale asked. Undecided. Darius met Lyra's gaze. Southern votes no. Western votes no, Ronan said. Eastern votes no, Kale added. 3 against 2. 1 undecided. Everything rested on Central. The vote took place at the original conclave grounds. This time Malric attended. He stood at the northern stone, composed, unhurried. He did not look angry. He looked resolved. Emergency dissolution vote, he announced. All territories present. Lyra stood outside the circle as independent classification did not grant formal voting authority. But everyone could see her. That mattered. Malric's gaze swept the gathered alphas. The sovereign anomaly has exposed structural weakness, he said. The current charter cannot contain emerging bloodlines without destabilization. He did not say Lyra's name. He did not need to. We dissolve the charter, rewrite bond recognition and restore stability. Restore control. The northern alpha raised his hand first. North votes yes. The second northern territory followed. Yes. Malric turned to Darius. South. Darius did not hesitate. No. Ronan stepped forward next. West votes no. Kale followed. East votes no. 3. Malric's gaze shifted slowly to the final alpha. Central territory. Of Irvin. He had remained silent through every confrontation. Balanced. pragmatic. His territory thrived by avoiding extremism. He looked at Lyra briefly. Then at Malric. Dissolution creates power vacuum, Corvin said evenly. Malric did not flinch. It creates opportunity for correction. Corvin's expression remained unreadable. Lyra held his gaze. Not pleading. Not demanding. Steady. The warmth inside her pulsed once. Not outward. Not aggressive. Present. Corvin's eyes narrowed slightly. He could feel it. Not dominance. Alignment. If the charter dissolves, Corvin said slowly, council authority consolidates temporarily. Yes, Malric replied. And sovereign classification is erased. Yes. Corvin looked at Lyra again. You would accept non-recognition? Lyra answered calmly. I do not require recognition to exist. A ripple moved through the circle. Malric's expression sharpened slightly. Existence without structure invites anarchy. Or evolution, Kale countered. Corvin lifted his hand slightly, silencing side murmurs. The charter is flawed, he said. Malric's jaw tightened subtly. But dissolution centralizes too much authority. Silence deepened. Corvin continued. I vote no. The circle stilled. 3 no became 4. Majority. The dissolution failed. Malric did not react visibly. He inclined his head slightly. The charter stands. Formal. Controlled. But the defeat was undeniable. The council had attempted structural reset, and failed publicly. The fracture was now official. As the gathering dispersed, Lyra stepped forward into the circle. Malric did not leave immediately. You miscalculated, she said quietly. Malric regarded her steadily. No. She tilted her head slightly. You expected Corvin to vote yes. I expected him to protect stability. He did. Malric's gaze sharpened. You believe this is victory. I believe it is transition. Silence lingered between them. You think the council fears you, Malric said. I think it fears irrelevance, Lyra replied. For the first time something like fatigue flickered across his features. You are not wrong. The admission was quiet. Measured. You are also not complete. Lyra studied him carefully. What does that mean? Malric's gaze dropped briefly to her abdomen. First line does not end with independence. The words carried weight. It restructures hierarchy entirely. Lyra felt the warmth pulse again. Stronger. Then perhaps hierarchy needs restructuring. Malric held her gaze for a long moment. You will not be easy to control. No. Then we will adapt. It was not threat. It was acknowledgement. The council would not dissolve. It would evolve. Because it had no choice. Malric turned and walked away without ceremony. Kale approached her first. It's done. For now, she replied. Ronan joined them. They'll shift strategy again. Yes. But this time, Darius added, stepping beside them, they will negotiate. Lyra looked toward the horizon. The council had lost legislative control. Lost narrative control. Lost custody leverage. The only move left. Inclusion. She felt the child move for the first time. Subtle. Alive. Balanced. Kale noticed her expression shift. What is it? She placed her hand over her stomach. It's not about surviving the council. Then what? Ronan asked. It's about redesigning it. Silence followed. Because that was larger than rebellion. Larger than independence. It was systemic change. And for the first time since the mating ceremony, Lyra did not feel reactive. She felt positioned. Chapter 10. The Sovereign Era. The council did not fall. It transformed. 3 weeks after the failed dissolution vote, Malric requested formal assembly. Not conclave, not emergency session. Reformation summit. The language alone signaled concession. Lyra stood once more within the stone circle, but the air felt different now. Less brittle. More measured. Kale stood to her right. Ronan to her left. Darius slightly behind as he had during the open assembly. This time no silver nets. No suppressive fields. Malric addressed the circle without ceremony. The charter remains intact, he began. However, it is no longer sufficient. He did not look at Lyra immediately. But everyone knew the reason. Sovereign classification will be formally recognized as independent status, he continued. Territorial alignment will not be mandatory for sovereign bonds. A ripple moved through the gathered wolves. Formal recognition, not containment. Malric went on. Council oversight will shift from enforcement to mediation. That was the real change. No more custody claims. No more suppression directives. Lyra stepped forward slightly. And first-line heirs? Malric met her gaze. Will not be placed under council guardianship without voluntary consent. Voluntary. A word the council had not used lightly before. Silence held for several breaths. Then Alpha Corvin of Central Territory spoke. This prevents structural collapse. Darius nodded once. It prevents rebellion. Ronan added evenly, and prevents unnecessary war. Kale did not speak. He watched Lyra. Because this was her moment. Malric's eyes settled fully on her now. You have altered trajectory without open conflict, he said. You tried open conflict, she replied calmly. A faint murmur of restrained approval moved through the circle. Malric did not deny it. And yet, he continued, you did not attempt to overthrow the council. Lyra held his gaze. Overthrowing structure creates vacuum. Yes. I prefer evolution. Malric inclined his head slightly. Then speak your terms. The circle stilled. Lyra felt the child shift within her, steady, responsive. She stepped fully into the center. Sovereign bonds must remain outside political arrangement, she began. No territory may pre-assign mates for alliance leverage. Several alphas exchanged glances. Ronan did not object. First-line bloodlines are not weapons, she continued. They are not succession tools. Kale's gaze softened slightly. Independent sovereigns must be granted neutral territory protection if alignment is declined. Darius nodded once. And finally, Lyra said, council authority must derive from majority territorial consent, not elder appointment. That last demand carried weight. Malric considered it carefully. You seek shared governance. Yes. You dilute elder permanence. Yes. The silence deepened. Malric exhaled slowly. Permanent authority breeds stagnation. The admission was quiet. And stagnation breeds fracture. He turned to the gathered alphas. Vote. This time it was not about dissolution. It was about reformation. Southern voted yes. Western voted yes. Eastern voted yes. Central voted yes. One northern territory hesitated. The second followed the majority. Unanimous. The sovereign amendment passed. When the circle dispersed, no one celebrated loudly. No cheers. No dominance displays. Only something quieter. Relief. Kale approached her first. You didn't claim power. She looked at him. I claimed balance. Ronan joined them. You could have dismantled the council. Yes. Why didn't you? Lyra considered the question. Because structure isn't the enemy. She glanced toward Malric speaking quietly with elder representatives. Rigidity is. Ronan nodded slowly. Kale's hand found hers, not possessive. Steady. The bond between them pulsed softly. Not overwhelming. Integrated. Sovereign bonds did not dominate. They aligned. Darius approached last. You've done something rare, he said. What? You've changed law without blood. Lyra exhaled quietly. Blood is easier than reform. Darius almost smiled. Yes. Weeks passed. No more hunter directives. No suppressive nets. Territories recalibrated political arrangements under new framework. Not chaos. Adjustment. The council chamber expanded to include territorial representatives in rotational seats. Elder authority remained, but no longer absolute. And Lyra? She did not claim throne. Did not form new territory. She remained independent sovereign within protected neutral grounds by choice. As her pregnancy advanced, wolves from multiple territories requested audience. Not out of fear. Out of curiosity. Out of recognition. When the child was born beneath a clear winter sky, the moon hung full and unchallenged. The newborn's eyes opened briefly. One silver. One gold. The circle around them went silent. Not because of power surge. Not because of dominance. because of what it symbolized. Integration. Kale stood beside her. Ronan present as witness. Darius near the perimeter. Malric watching from a respectful distance. No one knelt. No one bowed. No one was commanded. And that was the point. Lyra looked down at her child. You will not inherit control, she whispered softly. You will inherit balance. The silver warmth that had guided her from humiliation to reform settled completely. Not gone. Integrated. The mating ceremony that once rejected her had fractured the old system. But rejection had not weakened her. It had revealed misalignment. And misalignment, when corrected, strengthens structure. The sovereign era did not begin with conquest. It began with refusal. Refusal to be controlled. Refusal to retaliate recklessly. Refusal to collapse structure entirely. Lyra did not become queen through domination. She became sovereign through design. And in doing so, she ensured that no future Luna would stand beneath the moon as a political tool again. The council endured. The territories endured. But the axis shifted. Not east. Not west. Balanced. They tried to silence her with humiliation. They tried to contain her with law. They tried to seize her child with authority. But some bloodlines don't rise through war. They rise through correction. She didn't conquer the council. She restructured it. She didn't overthrow the alphas. She forced them to evolve. And the child they feared was never a weapon. It was proof. Proof that balance is stronger than dominance. That sovereign bonds don't bow to politics. And that rejection sometimes reveals the truth fate was hiding all along. If you enjoyed this story of power, prophecy, and sovereign love, subscribe for the next chapter in this world, where the child with silver and gold eyes will grow up in a pack system no longer ruled by fear. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the sovereign era.